Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure my sound is everything is up. Sometimes it drops when I do a series of these. And the last video I did, or the video before last, I think it was like 3 minutes I had to delete, or it was just nothing. Alright, so it seems like I'm up, and it seems like I'm moving and shaking and all this other good stuff. Oh, let's do a James Baldwin speech. I would love to do a James Baldwin speech. I did one early on in a conversation between him and Malcolm X. Well, but this is different. This is different. Take my train of thought and over Brown. But yeah, I'll do a James Baldwin thing. There's a very specific speech I have in mind. God damn it, you've put me on a tangent. James Baldwin, there's a speech of his of becoming an artist. The first debate that I've seen with James Baldwin, and we are way off the rails. Thanks a lot, Noble Brown. He was in a debate with, what is that Republican? I can't think of it, but they were at Oxford. And the way the man mind works, I've never seen anything like it. Like, he's giving the speech, and I'm like, all right, I'm trying to follow him. And as he's going through the speech, it hits you what he's trying to say. But he hits you all at once. And it's done in this just eloquent way, where the guy is using words that are just fantastic. It's amazing. Yeah, I love the guy. His lectures are amazing. But he has one in particular where he's talking about being an artist and saying how you build your audience with everything that you write and do, and how when the criticism was coming towards him, he really didn't give two shits about the criticism because he wasn't writing it for those critics. Yeah, James Baldwin is awesome. I can do shows on Baldwin and his stuff. I have done a debate. I have done one of the debates between Baldwin and Malcolm X. And fucking fantastic. This videos, it was like one of my early videos, but man, that debate is fucking fantastic. I may do that again. It's an awesome debate where you have these two people who are fighting for this. It's a common goal, but they have very different ideas on how to get to that particular goal. It's the argument. You find this argument all throughout history and everything that you're interacting with. Like spectrums that are close enough to one another where those spectrums can see each other, can have certain common goals, but they're apart enough where it creates a certain amount of division and conflict, even though from a larger perspective those things are almost indistinguishable from one another. So, but you find this in everywhere. That's not just James Baldwin. You have people in the DNC who wants to stay with Democrats. You have people who want to leave the Democrats. You have people who are on the left who are kind of in that middle ground of not necessarily sure what to do in regard to dem enter, dem exit. This idea of reform versus revolution. That was their basic argument, reform versus revolution. James Baldwin kind of made the Martin Luther King argument of, us talking about integration is insane and ridiculous. We've been integrated from the moment that we were slaves. Malcolm X making the point that I want my freedom right now. If I have to wait for 10 years, I want my freedom right now. I don't want to have to go through all this. I shouldn't have to be belittled in the society that I'm in, these structures that are put in place in order to keep me in a particular way. I want my freedom now. Strong, aggressive, fucking magnificent, and terrifying. Fucking terrifying. I mean, to the white population, I would imagine. But you can imagine that this guy who's being strong on this thing, god damn it, we're way off the rails. This guy who's being like real strong in this case, you have African Americans being emasculated in the society itself. These guys are walking around with signs saying, I am a man. Why are you using a sign saying, I'm a man? You're doing that because of what was pressed against you in that particular society. And then you have this guy who's strong, not necessarily backing away, not hedging the things that he's saying. He's having these actual arguments and conversations that are uncomfortable, but they're having the conversations about race and the way it interacts with us in the United States. With Malcolm X's perspective of, this kind of African nation. James Baldwin's point, and I agree with James Baldwin on this. You can leave right now. You can leave this country, you can go to Africa, and you'd still be an American. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way you think, the way you act, whether you accept or reject the society itself, you're still acting in response to the society that you're in. This is who you are. People will be able to smell you a mile away, and I'm not saying it in a bad way, I'm just saying they can look at you. I was in Egypt, and the woman was like, God, you look so American. What does that mean? What does that mean? James Baldwin is making this point that your reference points are here. No, you're not being treated fairly. Yes, they're fucking assholes to you. Yes, they're oppressive. Yes, they try to keep you in a particular place. But who you are, your identity is forged in that complex relationship. And there is no way to escape that particular relationship. This argument between these two ultimately ended up being the push and tug in regards to the civil rights movement. You can imagine that if you were faced with two choices, somebody like Martin Luther King and somebody who's more aggressive like Malcolm X, that the Martin Luther King figure becomes a lot more palatable. This other guy's kind of terrifying. Let's go with this peacenik over here. He's talking about peace and love. Let's go with this peacenik. And the peacenik is a massive understatement. This nonviolence was a strategy. In the same way that Malcolm X, the way his approach was a strategy. These things weren't just one-offs. They were thinking of how do we get liberation? How do we get freedom? One of the things, I think it was Lenin, who was like, you know, if you're talking about a revolution, you're not doing it piecemeal. You're not, you know, working a day job and then doing a revolution at night. This is what you do. This is what they were doing. They were trying to, how do you pry this off of the society itself? So I've spent several minutes in this, and I'm sorry, guys, that this was not the intention of the video. This was not the intention of the video. But that being said, I'm going to this. So there's an awesome conversation on Jimmy Dore's show, and I got to give him props on this because I love this video. This very specific part of the video, I'm going to show a section of this. But the other section has to do with Hillary Clinton invoking something that up to this point, we've heard Donald Trump scream at the top of his lungs, and we've heard Democrats wag their fingers saying, we don't want to build that wall. Is there anybody else who's supporting Donald Trump's wall? May that person please come forward. Let's see who Jimmy Dore brings up. This is awesome. He does a fucking magnificent job on this.
I don't know what they think they're... Well, I know what they think they're doing. They don't care if they lose. They love having Trump. It helps them.
Well, in fairness, maybe they think Debbie has potential.
Ha!
They want to keep Debbie in a position of power and influence. That's what they want. And she will take all the shitstorm that people can throw at her, but she's going to stay there. And it's our job to get rid of her. And that's why we had Tim Canova on.
Yeah, we did certainly have Tim Canova on. Let's listen to more of this.
That are absolutely essential to the American people's quality of life.
On that word compromise, I was talking to one of your colleagues in the House, Luis Gutierrez, over the weekend in D.C., and, I know several Democrats, him included, they say they actually support building the wall.
This is true. The Democrats are literally going to sign on to building the wall. They're going to sign on to funding Trump's wall. And they can't shout it loud enough. They brag about it. I showed you in the other video that Chucky the Shoom bragged about it, that we were going to fully fund the president's request for the wall. Dick Durbin said the same thing. Now she's telling me Raul Gravalia. Listen to what he told her.
Give the president his big, beautiful wall in exchange for Dreamer help. Do you back that?
I mean, let's not say.
Do you do that?
I sat next to Luis Gutierrez in caucus today. He doesn't support the wall, so don't characterize it that way.
He sat with me, Congresswoman, he sat with me in the D.C. bureau on Saturday saying, give me a hammer and nails, I will build that wall myself.
Telling you, but
I love this. This is so racist, and I don't mean racist in the real way. I mean it just in the way this is prosecuted itself. She's like, so about the wall. Let's talk about the wall. Donald Trump is trying to build a wall between here and Mexico. Okay, well, I talked to one of the Hispanic senators. Why just a random Hispanic senator? But okay, I talked to a random Hispanic senator, and that Hispanic senator said, "Give me a hammer and nails, and I'll build that goddamn wall myself." Oh man, that's hilarious. And the way that she hit her with it was, nobody really supports the wall. But the guy said he'd build it himself if you gave her hammer and nails. Now, like I said in the other video, you got to be fair to Debbie on this. I know I don't want to be, but to be fair, all of this is transactional. Like, Gutierrez doesn't want that wall built. What he will do, however, is build that wall if it keeps those people in the country. Those are slightly different things. and I actually disagree with Jimmy on this. Jimmy is making a point about the building wall. They're going to fund Trump's wall. Yeah, they should fund Trump's wall if it's going to keep those dreamers there. It's an inanimate object. Who the hell knows how much of that wall is going to get built in the first place? And so what? They're building an object. I don't care. Will he keep those kids into the country? If that answer is yes, give him his thing. Let's call this shit a deal and call it a day and move on. Move on. I don't care if Donald Trump gets his win in the sense of a wall. Mexico didn't pay for it, so well, there's that. But you guys created a problem with DACA. And now you have a bunch of kids, like 1 million kids, on the hook, not necessarily knowing what their lives are going to be like or whether some maniac with a badge is going to take them away and ship them to a country that they know nothing about. Funding his wall is a small price to pay. We spend billions of dollars, like $1 trillion a year on military and defense and all this other stuff. Do I really care if Donald Trump gets a percentage of something like that in order to build this wall? I do not. If he keeps those kids here, let him build his big, beautiful wall. And let's keep going, because there's more to this part, and this part gets pretty damn interesting. I want you to see who else is on board for Donald Trump's wall. Not conditionally, by the way. Not in a Gutierrez way of, I'll build that goddamn wall myself if I have to, if he keeps those kids here. Not conditional. Who's for the wall? Let's keep going.
Wow.
So they're talking about Luis Gutierrez? Is that what I thought they were talking about Raul Groval. They're talking about Luis Gutierrez. She goes, he does that. You can't characterize that he supports. So he told me, give me a hammer and nails. I'll build it myself. Okay. A potential momentum. Get back to potential momentum. That was better than this. This is hilarious.
If I get protection.
Right.
For
he
dreamers.
said he was willing
Right.
to compromise.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, he would help build it with his own hands, right. But he doesn't support it. This is the Democrats' resistance. This is the resistance. The only thing they're resisting is progressives. The only thing they're resisting is the people. They ain't resisting Trump. They're giving him everything. They're giving the wall to him. And what are they giving it to him for? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're getting absolutely nothing. Nothing.
They're not even
And I'm the asshole. Ron, we're the assholes for voting for Jill Stein. Just remember, this is Jill Stein's fault. This is the Russians. This must be the Russians or Susan Sarandon or fucking Lee Camp. I don't know.
Democrats aren't even bothering to point out that Trump promised another country would pay for the wall. They don't even point that part out. Remember when he promised Mexico would pay for it? Now we have to.
They don't even do that.
They don't even point that out.
But let's not characterize that as support for the wall. None of us, I don't know any Democrat that supports this wall, and most Republicans.
All right, so they're talking about the wall. Yeah, I disagree with him on this, man. It's politics is not just politics for the sake of politics, at least not all the time. There are real things that are being affected by this. How much money do we spend just on ridiculousness? And are you telling me that it's that big of a deal to give Donald Trump $1 billion in order to keep that wall up, or whatever the money is to keep that wall up, considering the amount that we spend on a daily basis in this country? If it keeps the kids in the country, then yeah, as a deal from a transaction standpoint, it makes sense to me. But those things are contingent upon one another. Like, I don't think this is just they're getting the wall without anything for it. I would imagine there's going to be strings attached. If they give him the wall with no strings attached, then yeah, they're fucking ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. I understand it from the standpoint of a transaction. It makes no sense at all if you're just giving him a wall without getting anything in return for that particular wall. Deborah Wasserman-Schultz in this point is trying to make the point of, no, he's not just for building a wall. He's for building a wall if it keeps the people here. There's a difference between that and unconditionally building a wall. The catch here, however, is Donald Trump was not the only one who was on the build the wall train. Build the wall. Build that wall. That wasn't just Donald Trump. There was another person in that audience screaming, build that wall. Let's take a look.
Wow, that's interesting. She said she doesn't know any Democrats. She said she doesn't know any Democrats that support a border wall.
She doesn't watch this show. Which,
Apparently,
I
she
mean,
doesn't watch the show, and neither did she pay attention to Hillary Clinton during her campaign. Let's watch this.
Hi, Secretary Clinton. I was wondering what you think about like securing the Mexican border with some of the illegal immigrants that come in. Just wondering.
Well, look, I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent.
You know, a barrier, a thing, another synonym for a wall. Whatever the synonym you want to use. I'll say barrier. I'll say blockade. I'll say a fence, double fenced. I won't say wall. Maybe I'll say a wall in some places. Let's see.
Illegal immigrants from coming in. And I do think you have to control your borders.
Mexico is such an important problem. Mexican government's policies are pushing migration north. There isn't any sensible approach except to do what we need to do simultaneously. You know, secure our borders with technology, personnel, physical barriers if necessary, and
Physical barrier.
That sounds like a wall to me. That sounds... I could be wrong. There are times where I've misperceived things. But it sounds like Hillary Clinton is saying, build the wall, build the wall, build the wall. And I understand there's some Democrats who's looking at this saying, hey, dude, that's not fair, man. She said barrier. She said barrier. She said nothing but a wall, sir. She said build a barrier, physical barrier, some kind of blockade, something that, you know, that keeps people out, that's standing there all the time, constantly. That's what she said. She didn't really say wall. It depends on what your definition of is. So let's let him finish. Let's see.
There's a barrier, physical barrier. What's a physical barrier? A wall.
And we need to have tougher employer sanctions, and we need to try to incentivize Mexico to do more. If they've committed transgressions of whatever kind, they should be obviously deported.
So when Debbie Wasserman Schultz says she doesn't know of any Democrats who are for a wall, maybe you should tell that to Jorge Ramos.
Now, if you believe in building a wall, what's the difference between your idea and Donald Trump's idea on building a wall with Mexico?
Well, so she's for building a wall. According.
That's a damn good question, by the way. That's a damn good question. I mean, it puts it in perspective. It's like, well, wait a minute. Donald Trump has been screaming, build a wall. Now, you guys have been calling this guy racist, and part of that is because he's come saying Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers. But emphasis is put on him in his build a wall. Now, I understand why there's emphasis on it, because Donald Trump has been, you know, I've said racist before. I think he is. And if at the very least, if you're looking at the civilization, you're saying that most of them are rapists and drug dealers, and you think some are good people. Yeah, I think something is a little bit wrong with your judgment and the way that you're perceiving those events. And at the very least, there's something in you that's looking at something and is considering to be that way. The only thing that you can really give is this kind of representation of yourself. That's his thoughts. That's what he believes of that particular country. So it's not shocking to me that he will deport and he would, you know, browbeat and then trying to build a border wall. That being said, the emphasis that's placed on it, the build the wall, the chanting and everything else, people flock to that. They put more weight on that because he's so gross. It's like the lens that they're looking through him with gives across a particular perspective versus the lens that people look at Hillary Clinton with. They don't see her as being gross in that way. So Hillary Clinton building a wall is not the same thing as Donald Trump. Build a wall. It's like, well, she wants to build a barrier. But wait a minute, that's just a wall. She just wants to build a wall also. Why is he getting so much shit about this and she's getting a pass? I'm just saying, Hillary Clinton, the person who ran in the last presidential candidate that failed and lost the reality shows, wanted to also build a wall. She might not have been out there chanting build a wall, but when you asked her, she wants to build a wall or physical barrier or something that blocks other people from moving or something that stands there eternally, something that keeps them out.
To Jorge Ramos, let's listen to what she says.
I think that everybody that I know of in the Democratic Party, and it used to be Republicans too, as you know, Jorge, who favored immigration reform also favored border security. And, you know, that's Ted Kennedy. It's obviously my husband, President Obama, myself, even, you know, somebody like President George W. Bush, who we forget was trying very hard to push immigration reform and gave up, I think, too easily. So, yeah, we do need to have secure borders. And what that will take is a combination of technology and physical barriers.
But you want a wall then?
No, we've already...
You said that.
Well, I voted for border security, and some of it was a fence. I don't think we ever called it a wall. Maybe in some places it was a wall.
Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? You want to build a wall? Oh, no, I voted for border security. We need to keep our borders. Yeah, I understand. But within the context of that border security, say you get a blunt sum of cash for border security. Does some of that border security require you to build a wall? Yes or no? Are you for building a wall? No, Jorge. I'm for building a fence. I think we need a fence. We need a fence. But you're saying you need a physical barrier. It depends on by what you mean by barrier. Like, you just don't want to say build a wall. It is hard to hear the difference between what Hillary Clinton is saying right here and what Donald Trump has said on the campaign trail. Where's the difference? Where's the difference? I mean, you could say, well, yeah, he's racist, so it makes it worse. Fair enough. But if they're doing the same fucking thing, like, I don't think she would be so over the top and gross with the way she's going about it. And a lot of this stuff has to do with tone. People mistaken tone for actual policy sometimes. This thing right here, the things that she's saying build the wall. She's saying we need to build a wall. We need border security. Now she's being more political in the way she's saying build the wall. She's using building or border security as a euphemism for wall and fence and barrier and security agents and deportations and stuff like that. So she's more politic about it. But brass tacks. What does Donald Trump want to do? Donald Trump wants a bunch of money to build a wall, a big, beautiful fucking wall, in addition to border security. Hillary Clinton, in the speech, I want to put more money into border security, securing our borders, and building a barrier, a fence. We shouldn't even have to name it, just a thing that stands there and keeps people up. She doesn't want to say it's a wall, but it's a goddamn wall. Let's keep going.
So we don't call it a wall like Trump, and that's where we differ. We call it a fence barrier.
Security.
We call it security for fence barriers and things.
She created a wall of buzzwords. That's what she did.
That's what she did. All right, so there you have it. I just wanted to show you why we have Trump. And that's why we have Trump, because Hillary Clinton's basically a Republican light, and that's what that is. I'm for a barrier. Trump's for a wall. I'm for a barrier. A fence, maybe a wall in some places.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that episode. Jimmy Dore did a fucking awesome job on this one. I watched that, particularly when he got to the end. I was like, holy shit, Jimmy Dore has compiled all this stuff. So I wanted to give shout out to Jimmy Dore for this one. I love this one. And I love the fact that he brought all of those clips together. And he's right on that point. You scream, build a wall. Like, for example, and a lot of this stuff is put through the lens of because of how he is. Like, if you're feeding into the narrative, it makes it that much more difficult to kind of make headway. It's easier to be a little bit more politic about what you're doing because it doesn't create as much emphasis on the things that you're doing. So Hillary Clinton would say border security. What does that mean? What does that mean? What is that euphemism for? Is it for building a wall? Is it for more border agents? Is it for more deportations? What does border security mean? The whole point of the word is to obfuscate the actual meaning of the word. Her taking a stance or saying something of meaning requires her some kind of obligation in some way. So you don't want to create an obligation. You want to be as murky and as ambiguous as you possibly can, allowing people to fill their thoughts into the speech as opposed to you actually saying anything. You can always go back to the speech and kind of get wiggle room. In this case, border security. Donald Trump screaming, build a wall. Build the wall is more blunt, it's more vulgar, it's more over the top. The stuff that Donald Trump has said before adds to the way people see him building that wall, and they immediately say, no. You're not building a wall just because you're racist. In Hillary Clinton's case, it's, I think we need to build a wall. Both of those things are ending up in the exact same place with both of these people wanting to build a wall and invest money into border security. I don't think Hillary Clinton would have gotten as much shit about this. I honestly don't. It's an offense. You know, the funny part is, if you ask border security, they would say they don't want a wall. They need to be able to see across the thing. A fence would be the thing that they would ask for. So. Alright, so let's see. This one wasn't going to be long. It was just me showing the Jimmy Dore video. I thought he did a good job. And So is Hillary Clinton no attacking one to defend the other alone? Allo. I think you may be what you call, oh God, you guys are having a fight. Awesome Jimmy and Jamal Dore. Yeah, Allison, I like Dore, man. I like Dore. This particular clip was awesome. The compilation of the Hillary clips with Deborah Wasserman Schultz. I mean, it's fact-checking in real time. It's like, none of us support the wall. None of us, no, God, that wall is god-awful. That Donald Trump, he's a big brute of a man. You know, his chest hair, you know, he's such a brute. He's such a brute. Trying to build a wall. None of us, there's no Democrat, none of us support that goddamn wall. Hey, do you know that the person who you were campaigning for, Hillary Clinton, the one who you gave all of the keys to the kingdom to in the last 2016 election, that person was for a wall. That person was for a wall. I wish they could have fact-checked their ass in real time. So, I am going to leave it at that. I'm not going to keep this one long. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. I have one more after this that I don't know if I want to get to tonight. It's going to be a 420 UFO update. It should be interesting, actually. Hal Puthoff, in addition to Hal Puthoff, it was another guy. I can't think of his name. George Knapp, I believe, is interviewing Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff is one of the scientists or physicists that's working with the rock star, Blink-182 singer, so Corey DeLong, or Tom DeLong, for, what is it, Journey to the Stars for the company. Long story short, I can get to it in the video, but ultimately what it boils down to is there's somewhat of an update. Hal Puthoff is giving information that's things that are going to come out, things that are going to take place, including them having actual materials that these guys have worked with. Also, he gives a description to the pilot himself, meaning the pilot that was flying that aircraft on the Nimitz has been interviewed. So, it should be fucking interesting. It should be a fucking interesting one. So, I'm going to end it here. I will probably be back in about 15 minutes. Alright guys, thanks for showing.